There are villages in Pakistan so small they never make it to the maps. This story begins in one such village, near Chakwal. Dry earth, silent nights, and stories the elders whisper only after dark. In the summer of 2017, the Saeed family moved into a house that had been abandoned for nearly 30 years. It was cheap, strangely cheap. But Salim Saeed didn't question it. A retired schoolteacher, proud, skeptical of superstition. He saw it as a bargain. His wife Ruxana was more cautious. She noticed the broken minaret on the roof, the windows blacked out with soot, and one locked room at the back of the house. The landlord simply said, "Just don't open that one." They moved in on a Friday afternoon. Studio microphone scene shift. First night. The house creaked. Not from the wind, but from within. Footsteps in the hallway, but no one there. Faint scratches on the inside of the bathroom mirror. Their youngest daughter, Aisha, barely 6 years old, said quietly over dinner, "Mama, there's a man in the black room. He called my name." Salim froze. He hadn't told anyone about the room. "Did someone open it?" "No, but I hear him. He cries in there." Ruxana tried to brush it off. But that night, she noticed something terrifying. The lock on the black room was no longer dusty. It had been touched. Candle midnight whispers. At 2:33 a.m., Salim woke to a strange sound. It was like azan but reversed. A voice, distorted, as if reciting the call to prayer backward. Slow and mocking. He followed the sound to the black room. Locked, still locked, but behind it scratching. Then a whisper. "Salim, Salim, I remember you." He stepped back, shivering. He didn't tell Ruxana. Child Aisha's friend. The next morning, Aisha was playing alone in the courtyard. Ruxana asked, "Who are you talking to?" Aisha smiled and said, "Uncle Rahim. He said he used to live here before the walls fell." Ruxana felt sick. There was no Rahim in the village. But the neighbors later told her, Rahim was the last person who lived in that house and he disappeared. No body, no blood, just gone, vanished. Prayer beads, the Malvi warns them. That evening, Ruxana went to the village mosque. The Malvi, an old man with cloudy eyes, listened silently as she told him what was happening. When she mentioned the black room, his face turned pale. "Burn that house if you must, but never unlock that room. It is not a man who waits behind it. It is something much older than man." He handed her a thick black tawiz, stitched shut with red thread. "Put it above your daughter's bed, or she will be the first it takes." The shadow appears. That night, Ruxana placed the tawiz above Aisha's bed. She didn't sleep. Neither did Salim. At 3:10 a.m., they heard a loud thud, as if something heavy had fallen inside the locked room. Then silence. Aisha screamed. They ran to her room. She was curled in a corner, eyes wide. "He was standing over me," she whispered. "The man from the black room. But he has no eyes." They should have left the next day, packed their things, walked away. But fear does strange things to people. It doesn't just freeze your feet. It freezes your mind. The Saeed family stayed. Salim told himself it was stress, hallucination. Ruxana clutched prayer beads until her fingers bled. And Aisha changed. The change in Aisha. She no longer wanted to play outside. She sat by the black room for hours, staring at the door. One afternoon, she said, softly, "He says he used to have a daughter too. She didn't obey him, so he made her quiet." Salim lost his temper. He shouted at Aisha, forbade her from ever going near that room again. But that night they found something horrifying. All her dolls, heads torn off, arranged in a circle around her bed. In the center, a charcoal drawing of a tall man with no face. Ruxana demanded they leave. But then, Aisha disappeared. Candle the day the light died. It was a cloudy afternoon. Ruxana was preparing lunch. Salim was asleep. Aisha was playing with her coloring book, humming a soft tune, something no one recognized. Then suddenly silence. No humming, no movement. Ruxana called her name once. then twice. She searched every room, even the courtyard. And then she saw it, the black room door swinging slightly open. The lock was broken, shattered, as if something inside had forced its way out. She stepped forward, screaming Aisha's name. But the room was empty. No furniture, no window, just a single circle drawn in ash on the floor. And in the center of the circle, Aisha's favorite red shoe. The police report. Salim and Ruxana called the police. 2 officers came from Chakwal City. They investigated, questioned the neighbors, inspected the house. But here's what they found strange. There were no fingerprints on the black room door, not even Aisha's. The room had no dust inside, unlike the rest of the old house. And the floor beneath the ash circle was warmer than the rest. One officer whispered, "I've heard of this place. They say it eats people." The case was filed as missing minor, unexplained circumstances. But the police never returned. The watching eye. After Aisha vanished, Salim stopped talking. He sat for hours in the courtyard, staring at the house. At night, he would roam the hallways, whispering to himself. Ruxana found him standing before the black room one evening. He said, "I saw her inside. She waved at me, but her eyes were black, like holes." Then he wept like a child. That same night, Ruxana found something under his pillow. A piece of paper, old, yellowed, with Arabic written in blood. "You took her. Now give yourself." Skull, the second disappearance. 2 days later, Salim was gone. The courtyard gate was locked. His shoes were by the door. Phone fully charged. Nothing stolen. Ruxana searched every room, including the black room. Empty. But this time, there were wet footprints on the ceiling. That night, she opened the Quran and wept. She cried until dawn. No answer came, until the wall began to bleed. Just above the black room door, red liquid oozed out slowly, spelling a word. Soon, Chains, the Jinn's history, revealed by the Malvi. The next day, Ruxana returned to the old Malvi in the mosque. She told him everything. The Malvi closed his eyes, sighed, and said, "It is not just a Jinn. It is a Rajjinn, an ancient one, banished by Prophet Suleiman's seal centuries ago. They are bound to locations, and this one was bound to that house. It feeds on grief, on broken families, on pain." She asked him, trembling, "Why us? Why Aisha?" The Malvi replied, "Because she heard him first, and once you hear him, he is part of you." The warning. As Ruxana returned home, she found the front door wide open. Inside, the entire house was silent. But on the wall, in thick black soot, a new message had appeared. "Now it's just you." She dropped her prayer beads. The last light bulb flickered. And then, she heard Aisha's voice, soft, from the black room. "Mama, I'm not alone anymore. Come play with me. When you've lost everything, your child, your husband, your home, what do you have left to lose? Yourself." And that's exactly what it wanted. But Ruxana wasn't ready to surrender. Not yet. Open book, the Book of Chains. Ruxana spent the next few nights at her sister's house in Chakwal City. But she couldn't sleep. Aisha's voice still followed her. In dreams, in the silence between breaths. Desperate, she visited an old Tibia Haveli, a place rumored to house forbidden knowledge. There, she met a man named Pir Haroun, part scholar, part exorcist, and feared even by Malvis. When she told him about the house, he grew still. He handed her a book wrapped in deer leather, smelling of ash and incense. Its title, written in faded Urdu, translated to Kitab al-Zanjir, the Book of Chains. Inside, she found the name, Rajjinn Malik Azza, one of the 9 bound beneath Suleiman's command. Once a prince among fire beings, now cursed to remain in ruins built over his burial. The curse was clear. Each soul who enters with pride or doubt shall awaken him. He chooses the youngest, and then the strongest. Fire, the ritual of salt and fire. Pir Haroun instructed her carefully. 1. Circle the black room in salt and crushed sandalwood. 2. Burn goat's blood incense. 3. Read Surah al-Baqarah in its entirety backwards, not in meaning, but in sequence. Do not stop, no matter what you hear, even if it speaks with your daughter's voice. She returned to the house that night. Her heart was hollow, her hands trembling, but her will was sharp. She drew the circle, lit the incense, opened the book of chains, and began. Candle, the room fights back. As she recited, the room grew hot, then freezing. The shadows stretched along the walls, becoming faces, grinning, open-mouthed, whispering her name. Mama! Mama, help me! Why are you hurting me? But she kept reading. Suddenly, the incense flared, and the salt circle broke. From the center of the black room, the floor cracked open, revealing a hole no deeper than a child's height, but impossibly dark. From it came a growl, like fire breathing through stone. Then, a shape rose, tall, robed, headless, hands made of smoke. The Jinn had awakened. Prayer beads the bargain. Ruxana couldn't move. Her voice failed. Her limbs trembled. The Jinn did not attack. Spoke inside her mind. You called me. I answered. What do you seek, woman of grief? She whispered. Give me back my daughter. The Jinn laughed, a sound that shook the walls. She came to me willingly. I gave her peace. You gave her fear. Trade your soul and take hers. She cried, fell to her knees. Then, from the doorway, another voice. Older adult, the Malvi returns. The old Malvi entered, holding a brass lamp filled with burning Rouhani oil. Behind him, for men, all Hafiz, reciting verses aloud. The Jinn roared. The Malvi shouted, Malik Azza, bound are you under the name of Allah. Return to your pit. The men threw crushed black salt and dried pomegranate into the hole. The fire shrieked. The Jinn collapsed inward like smoke being sucked into a drain. But just before it vanished, it screamed, I leave her behind. But I do not leave empty-handed. And then silence. The hole sealed. The walls cracked. And the black room was gone. Only ashes remained. Girl Aisha returns? Or does she? The next morning, Ruxana was taken to the hospital. She had collapsed from exhaustion. Her hair had turned half-white overnight. 2 days later, a young girl was found near a canal 5 kilometers away. Unconscious, barefoot, shivering. It was Aisha. Doctors said she was healthy. No wounds. No trauma. She didn't remember anything. Only one thing she kept repeating. There was a man with no eyes. He made me laugh. At the final sign, Salim was never found. The black room no longer existed. The wall where its door once was, now sealed with brick and cement. Ruxana sold the house and left the village. But 6 months later, a new family moved in. And on their very first night, the youngest son pointed to that sealed wall and said, Mama, the man inside says the games are starting again. They say children forget the most. But they also remember what no one else can see. It's been 11 years since Aisha Saeed was found barefoot near that canal, silent, pale, and claimed by nightmares no one could explain. Now she's 17, and the whispers have returned. Book's life after haunting. Aisha now lives in Islamabad with her mother Ruxana, who never remarried. She's quiet, polite, bright in school, but she avoids darkness, never sleeps with the lights off, never speaks of Chakwal, until the dreams return. In the first one, she sees a burning doorway. In the second, a man with no eyes calls her by name. In the third, she sees her father, Salim, kneeling in a black room, weeping as a tall shadow whispers something into his mouth. She wakes up crying. Every night. Fountain pen the letter. One morning, Aisha finds a sealed envelope on her desk. No return address. Inside is an old photo of the house in Chakwal, and a note written in red ink. He is still waiting. You left something behind. She rushes to her mother. Ruxana tears the letter apart and yells at her. We never speak of that place again. He cannot follow us. Not here. But Aisha sees something behind her mother's eyes. Fear she's never seen before. and it confirms what her heart already knows. He never left. The mark returns. The next day, Aisha notices something odd in her bathroom mirror. When she wipes the fog after a hot shower, a faint word appears in the glass. Soon, she thinks it's a coincidence, until it happens again and again. Sometimes, when she turns off the light, her own reflection smiles before she does. And then one night, she finds an old burn mark on her wrist, the same shape that was drawn in the ashes of the black room. A circle and a line, the mark of Malik Azza. Open book, the forgotten memory. Late one night, unable to sleep, Aisha opens her childhood diary. A small pink notebook with faded pages. Most entries are simple school notes, drawings, poems. But one page, dated just 2 weeks before her disappearance, stands out. It reads, "Uncle says I don't need to be afraid anymore. He said Mama and Papa don't love me like he does. He said I can stay with him forever if I just keep the door open." Her hands tremble. Tears fill her eyes. She doesn't remember writing that, but it's her handwriting. Stop sign, the forbidden visit. Aisha makes a decision. She takes a bus to Chakwal alone without telling Ruxana. She stands outside the old house, now run down again, paint peeling, roof sagging. The new tenants are long gone. Locals say they left in the middle of the night, without their furniture. But the house still stands. And the wall where the black room once was, cracked. One deep crack running straight down the center. And as she touches it, she hears a familiar voice whisper inside her head. "You came back. This time we won't be interrupted." Skull, the true history. Suddenly, Aisha collapses. Her mind floods with images, forgotten, buried. She remembers now. The black room was never empty. It was a gate, a prison for the Rajjin Malik Azza, bound by Solomon's seal, now weakened. She sees her father, crying, chanting verses until his voice failed. She sees her mother, begging the Jinn to take her instead. And she remembers her own laughter, while floating in a void of smoke and whispers. But worst of all, she remembers what she promised him. "When I grow up, I'll help you. I'll bring others. I'll open the gate for real." And now, the time has come. The possession begins. As she stands at the cracked wall, her hand begins to move on its own, fingers tracing a symbol across the surface. A circle and a line. The seal begins to glow. Black smoke leaks through the cracks. Aisha screams, tries to pull away, but the Jinn is already inside her mind. Her eyes roll back. She sees flames, chains, blood, and then her own reflection but smiling cruelly. Candle, Ruxana's final fight. Back in Islamabad, Ruxana wakes up suddenly, choking, breathless. In her dream, she saw the black room again, and her daughter kneeling in it. She calls Pir Harun, now an old man in a wheelchair. He says only one thing: the seal is breaking, and if she opens it willingly this time, we won't be able to close it again. Ruxana leaves immediately, Quran in hand, black salt and sandalwood in her bag. She heads to Chakwal one last time. There are places you can leave, but some places never leave you. For Ruxana and Aisha Saeed, the village house in Chakwal was one of those places. And now it was calling them home one final time. The return to Chakwal. Ruxana arrived just after dusk. The house stood quiet, but not empty. The air shimmered with heat though the evening was cool. And from inside the walls chanting, not human, not divine, something in between. She held the Quran tight in her hands, black salt and sandalwood powder in her dupatta. Her feet trembled, but she moved forward. She wasn't just a mother now, she was a soldier. Person standing, Aisha, changed. Inside the house, she found Aisha sitting cross-legged in the courtyard. But her face was wrong. Her eyes were darker, expression frozen, like a doll waiting to blink. "You came," Aisha said softly. "You always come too late." Ruxana whispered, "That thing inside you, it's not you." Aisha smiled. "It is me. It's the part you buried when you ran, when you let him take Papa, when you prayed instead of fighting." The ground shook. The crack in the wall split open. From behind it, black smoke poured into the courtyard, forming two glowing eyes. The Rajjin had returned. Fire the true plan. Malik Azza spoke, not in sound but in thought. This girl is mine. She gave me her name long ago. But I do not want her body. I want your bloodline. The mother who resisted. The daughter who obeyed. You are my seal. And she is the key. Suddenly, Aisha screamed, voice human again. Mama! Don't let him. Then silence. Her head jerked to the side. Her eyes went black again. Rukhsana dropped to her knees, pulled the Quran open, and began to recite loudly. Audu Billahi min ash-shaitan ir rajim. The Jinn shrieked. The wind howled. The bricks began cracking. But the Jinn laughed. Your words cannot seal what is already opened. And then, he offered a choice. Prayer beads, the final bargain. Give yourself willingly, Rukhsana. Let me bind to your soul, not hers. And she walks away free. Or deny me again. And this time, she burns from the inside. Rukhsana trembled. She looked into Aisha's eyes. Tears rolled down her daughter's cheeks. Somewhere inside, the real Aisha was fighting to surface. And then, Rukhsana stood. She dropped the Quran, stepped forward, and said, Take me, but let her go. The Jinn smiled, for the first time visibly, a wide, inhuman smile stretching across the black smoke. A worthy mother at last. Skull the possession. Rukhsana felt it instantly. Her skin burned. Her veins went cold. Her voice cracked as smoke entered her mouth. Her eyes, her ears. She fell to the ground, convulsing. Her fingernails blackened. Her heartbeat stopped for 12 full seconds. Then she sat up, eyes glowing red. But the Jinn made one mistake. Crescent Moon, the hidden verse. Pir Haroon, years ago, had whispered something to her that she had never forgotten. If ever you must trade yourself, make sure you hide the seal of protection beneath your heart. Only then can your sacrifice become a prison. Beneath her clothes, tied over her chest, was a scroll soaked in Zamzam water, wrapped in deer leather, inscribed with Surah al-Hashr. As the Jinn settled into her body, it trapped itself inside the spiritual seal. It screamed, tried to escape, but the body had already become a tomb. Rukhsana's final words before falling unconscious. You fed on my pain, now feed on my faith. And then, silence. The wind died, the cracks in the wall sealed, the air cleared, and Aisha woke up whole again. Candle 1 year later. Aisha now lives in Karachi, studying psychology. But she wears a pendant around her neck, a thin sliver of burned sandalwood. She visits Chakwal every year. Not the house that was demolished. She visits a small grave, marked only with one name, Rukhsana Saeed, mother, warrior, seal. Locals say the nightmares have stopped. The village is peaceful. But one child, newly moved in nearby, recently told his mother, There's a lady in my dreams. She has glowing eyes. She says, Don't open the wrong door. Clapperboard, end of story. Crystal Ball, the Jinn that lived in the walls, true horror from Pakistan.